I heard that futurecasting is an essential tool for long-term business
According to a
strategy.
recent poll, 48% of Canadians say they are $200 or less each month away from financial
Was down again? Do you think the energy sector is
of Albertans say the economy is too dependent on oil.
Canadian student leaves university with $26,000? I'm considering cloud computing for my business.
Filter out the noise. Hear it straight from the CPA's mouth.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Straight from the CPA's Mouth. I'm Gordon Turtle, Senior Vice President of Communications and Recruitment at CPA Alberta, and I'll be your host for this podcast. This episode of Straight from the CPA's Mouth marks the third of four episodes in a series of specials for Financial Literacy Month. Today, I have the pleasure of hosting a panel of three very smart CPAs who volunteer for the CPA Canada Financial Literacy Program, and they'll be discussing the art of saving and spending wisely. So welcome to all of you. Our panelists today are Aileen Campbell, Vice President of Finance at McLeod Properties Group, Tim Onciul, CFO at Silvacom Group, and Justin Wong, Director of Special Projects at MacEwan University. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for being here. It's great to have you here during Financial Literacy Month. And obviously, our topic today is financial literacy. And I'd like to start first maybe asking you, Aileen, why is financial literacy important to you?
Financial literacy for me is a very important life skill. It is something, to me, will help each one of us or every individual save some money, gain that financial freedom that I think everybody is wanting to achieve.
What about you, Justin?
Yeah, I think it's really close to what Eileen's also saying too. It's really important. It helps the people over to equip people with the knowledge and skills we need to manage money effectively.
Well, that's a good way. That's almost the definition of what financial literacy is, I guess, is those skills to manage money effectively and properly. Tim, anything to add?
I think we as finance professionals, we take it for granted. We assume that everyone's been able to benefit from the lifelong learning that being a CPA provides. We forget it's not something that our current educational system really emphasizes as they go up through the primary and secondary program, but they are lessons that affect our entire life.
I've often wondered, I understand the importance of financial literacy, but it seems like today there's so many sources for information, and there are apps and websites and podcasts about financial literacy. But do you find in the work that you do in this area that there's still a lot of people who lack the basics of what financial literacy is and how to manage their mony?
Very much so.
Definitely, yes.
And why do you think that is? You mentioned that it's not taught in school. Do you think it should be?
I think it should be. I think it says you have the apps, but unless you have an intrinsic interest in that topic, you don't get drawn to that application and buy it or read it or whatever, right? So,
Yeah, I think that's really a good point. And also, it's the fact that, unfortunately, people shy away from this issue. It's, almost even a taboo issue that people don't really want to research, or they kind of put their heads in the sand kind of thing for this type of topic, I feel.
Yeah, I also agree with my friends here, Tim and Justin. If you look at our curriculum, like elementary or university, unless you're in the financial world, you don't get that basic financial learning or literacy that each individuals will definitely need. So I think we need to have some kind of a change in the curriculum to just focus a little bit more on the practical side of it, not necessarily learning financing or accounting, but really learning more about the practicality of financial literacy.
Interesting. And I guess from the other side, people are, it seems, bombarded by offers to get this credit card and that credit card and finance a new vehicle or a new boat or whatever. And so it's very easy to slip into maybe a high debt situation because it seems so easy and people are kind of throwing it in your face all the time.
Yeah, definitely. Even you see in the news just constantly just record high debt levels for the Canadian populace. It just kind of feels a little scary that it just keeps on climbing and climbing. It's very similar to the U.S. Previously before the downturn there, that they had record high debt levels as well.
For sure. I want to talk a bit about the role of saving in a person's life, its impact on their finances, and how to save. And I'm sure that each of you will have some insights into that. But what role does saving play in a person's life, and why is it important? Should people start saving the minute they graduate from high school, or what are your thoughts on that, Aileen?
I would say as soon as we can, like as young as we can. I grew up, I was very lucky that my parents were very focused on making sure that we all know how to handle money. So as soon as we got some, your $5 gift from a Christmas or birthday, they open a bank account. And to me, that gave me a sense of confidence as growing up that, okay, I know what money is. I know the value of money, not necessarily knowing that I can buy things with it, but just really getting that idea of saving and be comfortable with it and how you use it. And I think each one of us, as soon as we can, if we can start saving, that'd be good.
Yeah, I think that everyone, as soon as they start, even every child, as soon as they understand the concept of money, should be taught savings. And really, it's like taking $1 and, basically putting 100 pennies on the table. They can see all these 100 pennies. This is going back in time, not many pennies, but the concept of taking 10 of them and putting them towards savings, and then 10 of them going towards your candy jar. And there's something visual, I think, especially when you're raising children, like that really does help. That helped my children to understand, out of $1, where does it go, and what's left at the end of the day.
So people should start saving even before they finish high school, obviously.
Exactly.
And what are people saving for? Like, do you need to have a purpose to save, like for retirement or to buy your dream house or to buy a new, car? Do people need like a goal for their savings, or is just the concept of saving for its own good, good enough to convince people to save?
Well, I think that it's important to set those goals so then you actually are motivated to save. So, like you were just kind of mentioning, saving up for that, maybe a vacation or a trip, it helps them kind of push to kind of make a plan and help figure out how much it's going to take to get to that vacation that they want in, let's say, that 6-month span, or is it going to take a little too much money to save up to get in that 6-month span? So maybe it's a year then.
Excellent. So is there like a kind of a rule of thumb you should use, like you should save 10% of your income or, something like that? Or is it just whatever you can do at a particular point in your life?
I personally think that no matter what your age and circumstances, I think you need a buffer against disruption of your monthly income. And I always say 6 months. Whether it's 3 months or 9 months, everyone might have a different risk tolerance. But I've always said, have a 6-month supply of readily available cash or somewhere that you can draw off of, like in a cash account or equivalent to a cash account like bonds or something. And that prepares you for that potential disruption in income or unexpected expenses.
Yeah, and that can happen at any time for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like as Tim said, like you really need to save for that rainy day event. In terms of, I read this book a long time ago, but I still remember it. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon, and it was written in 1926. And in that book, it says 10%. You should save money. I don't know if each one of us can actually save 10% all the time, but sometimes I think even $1 or $5 to set aside, and it will just build that momentum of saving. So that from $5 to 10% maybe.
Yeah, I mean, 10% at first it doesn't sound like a lot, but then when you think about it, from a practical perspective, that is quite a significant amount.
Yeah.
And so this is maybe a dumb question, but where should people save their money? Should it just be like in a savings account, or should they start investing, or I don't know. Where should they save their money?
Well, I think definitely the first starting point is definitely in a savings account to build up that emergency fund that everyone's been kind of mentioning so far. But then once that's kind of built, then it is definitely kind of expanding out your horizon there and seeing where you can invest your money in to help it grow.
Mm-hmm. personally, I like using TFSA account. It's similar to what Justin said, savings account, but at least with TFSA, especially if you're saving for a big chunk of money, like, I don't know, a big trip, a Europe trip, or even for a deposit for a house, you can save your money and that money be protected from tax if it's growing.
So that's a tax-free savings account?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And so how does that work again?
So the tax-free savings account, every individual has a certain annual limit. I think right now, or was it last year, we still had $10,000. And cumulatively, it's been really accredited for each individual. And then as you use it, it's typically after your tax money. So it's not taxed right now. Any earnings that you do, CRA won't be able to get a piece out of it. But if there are losses, then you don't get to deduct that from any of your gains.
I really do like the concept of putting money into the TFSA, because I find that, me personally, if you're putting money into something like a TFSA, you'll think twice about going and grabbing that money on a spontaneous. It's more difficult to actually go to the bank, ask for a withdrawal, all those kind of things. So I think it's good to take that and put it in a spot that is not, in your face, and it's a little bit more. You have to think about it more to actually go grab that cash.
Yeah, so it's not locked in, but it's just a little harder to get at.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would say that with that point of making it more difficult, I think it also on the flip side too, making it more easier for people to save is to have it automated. So having a small chunk of your salary that comes into your bank account to just automatically get moved over to a different bank account. So it's almost like you don't even know or don't even remember that it's been moved. And they do say that it's not noticeable after a while that amount of money was gone.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing for many years. I just have the bank take a certain amount out of each paycheck, and you don't even think of it as money that you're losing, but it's an account and sitting there. So.
And I think that automatic monthly transfer is critical, because if you look at the way we spend now, and it's becoming more and more, society is tending towards monthly payments on everything. Like, you don't buy a phone, you do monthly payments.
Yeah.
Everything is a monthly financing sale to you. And if you don't kind of match your savings in the same way that you're doing your monthly payments, you can get yourself into difficulties.
Yeah, for sure. I can see that happening. So here's the big question everyone gets asked probably. You've got a $5,000 visa bill after a big vacation. Should you postpone your monthly savings and pay that off as quickly as possible? Or what's your advice on, paying off debt versus savings? What's the best balance to strike? Anyone want to take that one on?
Sure, I'll take that on. So I think it's just dependent on, too, as well as is it important, is it a high interest side of things? So when you're mentioning about the credit card, my advice for those kind of strategies is that you're paying that off and holding off on your investing, because that 25% interest on that credit card, you can equate that to saying, are you going to be able to invest in something that's going to give you a 25% return? It's very unlikely that you're going to be able to get something like that without taking huge amounts of risk. So you can almost flip it and consider it as if it's an investment in itself, that you're saving money that you can use for later.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. When I was volunteering with CPA literacy program, I got a chance to talk to some high school students, and one of the topics that I taught or talked about was good credit, bad credit. So in your question, Gordon, about the $5,000 debt, we did an illustration of like, okay, if you buy an iPhone, let's just say it's $1,000, and then you put in your credit card, what's going to happen if you don't pay it off? And then we use, because most of our credit cards, if you don't pay, you'll have 18%. Like if you don't pay it right off the bat, it's 18%, right? So we did a compounding calculation, and the kids were like, "Whoa, you mean my iPhone's gonna cost that after just even a year?" So Justin was right. Like if you have a debt that has a really good high interest rate, you pay that off as soon as you can, and then maybe save a little bit, but focus on the high debt.
It comes back to if you do come across a situation where all of a sudden you have this big $5,000 high interest amount. If you are doing that regular savings and you have a 6-month cash buffer, you're able to take part of that and pay off that visa. And then slowly start to build up your cash reserve again.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Would you recommend, and I know we're just speaking in generalities here, but taking money out of your savings to pay that bill off in one fell swoop?
I'd recommend
it. Yeah, I would recommend it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's a little bit painful because you're like, okay, I have this nest egg of, I don't know, $5,000, and then suddenly you have to cut it in half, and you're like, oh my God. But maybe that will be something that will help you in the future and say, okay, do I really need to spend that money?
Yeah, preferably you didn't run up the $5,000 visa. You actually had cash to pay for that vacation. But
oh, you don't know me. So what about like bigger debts? Like say you're financing a new car. Would you recommend that people pay the minimum amount over the longest period of time because that's the least painful, or it seems that way at first blush? Or would you recommend making the monthly payment as big as you can possibly manage? Or does it matter?
I think I would personally, because my husband just bought a car 2 years ago, and we talked about it. Do we do leasing? Do we do buyout? Do we do monthly payments? And I think it really is about your personal situation. Like if you are really tight, so maybe the question is, do you need that kind of car? Like maybe you should just need a little bit more, maybe not a first a brand new car, but more of a second-hand used. And then, so the question really is what fits your financial situation at that time, and make sure that we all need cars just because how Canada or North America's infrastructure is set up, but we definitely need to look at our own personal situation.
In one of my prior lives, I was in the automotive industry, and so I have a fairly deep understanding of this topic where it is highly ill-advised to stretch out those payments over 60, 72 months because of the fact that a vehicle is such a quickly depreciating asset. If you stretch out that payment over 72 or 84 months, you are like underwater, if you know what that is. Basically, you owe, twice as much as the vehicle's worth within a couple of years. So on an asset like a vehicle, I would highly recommend a shorter 2 to 3 year pay down. So,
yeah, someone once told me when I was young, he said, spend as much as you can afford on your house and spend as less as you can on your car. So, Justin, any thoughts on that?
No, definitely I agree with my compatriots over here. And I guess even just to kind of look even further deeper too is the fact that, the consumers need to look at the contracts and looking at what actually is going to be happening with those lower interest payments or, that little promotional interest savings. What is that going to do in the long run with that contract? And I know a lot of people in this day and age, they don't read the contracts that they're signing into, but especially when it has to do with financial situations, it's definitely a great idea to read and try to understand what is actually going to be happening with the money that you're going to be paying into or the amount that you're going to be owing.
So I did want to ask about saving versus investment. And do you have any thoughts, like say a person has just finished school and she starts her first job as the career gets underway. Do you recommend that she save strictly in savings accounts, or is it time to start playing the stock market a bit, see if you can make some money that way? What are your thoughts on that?
I always think it's actually really dependent on the person's life situation. So is that person actually going to be thinking about owning a house in the near future? And so, they're early in their career, so a little bit lower salary, assumingly. And so, if that was the person's plan to be starting to be a homeowner very shortly, then it would probably be more into the savings side of things, I would think, that they would be going into for that. But again, it could be on the flip side too, is that nope, they're just staying at mom and dad's house for an indeterminate time. And then, you flip over to the fact that there's very little costs and cash outflow that's coming out there. So then definitely it would be the focus is on the investment side. So I think it's really just dependent on the particular person's life situations.
And I think someone just starting out their career has 30, 40-year time horizon. So in that situation, I'd definitely be highly recommending to go higher, weighting towards stocks, bonds, exchange-traded funds, something that has a long time horizon.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure a lot of us have heard about the RSP, which is your Registered Retirement Savings Plan. If this, especially if you're new in your field and you have a new job and your company offers a matching RSP or a matching pension fund, I think that it's free money, and it's something that each individual should take advantage of. And to add to Justin and Tim's comments, I think when we invest as well, we need to find experts in terms of financial investments, if that's the goal that we want to do. Because even as an accountant, as much as I'd like to read through all those brochures about investments, I think it's best to talk to a financial advisor to get you that full options and to plan your financial health in the future.
How do you find a financial advisor?
Good question.
Talk to your friends.
Talk to friends.
Seriously,
Yes.
I think personally, that is my opinion, the best way. Talk to your wide group of people. You're going to get from 10 people, you get 10 different recommendations, but it's really good to get that feedback from people that you trust.
Mm-hmm. And your bankers too. Like if you have your own, I don't know, when you were young, you have your savings account. Banks now do offer personal finance management. So they do have their own financial advisors now.
And the advice from someone that's actually been through 3-4 market cycles. The stock market goes up and down. Talking to someone and getting their opinion is pretty valuable too, because they kind of know the pitfalls.
And interview them too, right?
Yeah,
before I settled with my financial advisor, I actually had to talk to 2 or 3 just to get a feel, because to me, having a financial advisor is like talking to your doctor or to your dentist. It's very intimate. It's very personal. So you need to get that feeling of trust and that you can talk to them and make sure that they understand your goals.
That's a really good point. You need to interview your advisor as much as they need to interview you, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
I just want to shift a bit from talking about savings to talking about spending. And we all have to spend money on things that we need and things that we want. But is there such a thing as good spending and bad spending? And what would the difference be if you were trying to explain that to someone?
Kind of going back to your topic of it's really appreciating assets, or spending on appreciating assets versus depreciating assets. Spending on a house that either will hold its value or increase could be called smarter than spending on a new Jaguar, which will depreciate 30% the first year you buy it.
Now he tells me.
Yeah.
Is there such a thing as a smart consumer?
I think so. Yeah. For me, being a smart consumer is really getting to know about the product, not just your car. Like typically, if it's a car or it's a house, we do research. Who are the builders? Who are the manufacturers of these products? But even like small things that we look at, like clothes or shoes, it's good to get that feel, is this the right purchase for me? And sometimes we love to just splurge or do that quick 5-second, like, oh, I like this product. But sometimes you just have to think about it and be a smart consumer.
And I think also being a smart consumer is doing your research. And I think in this day and age with easy access to information, it's very easy to take a look at, especially for your high dollar items, that you actually definitely can easily research what the particular things you need to look for and watch out for too as well, which also then helps you with negotiating prices potentially, or just looking at the type of quality of product that you want to be purchasing.
You know, you often hear about the psychology of spending, and, you know, advertisers spend millions of dollars trying to appeal to people through, I guess, psychological methods or means of persuasion. And one of the things you often hear about is people had a bad day at work, so, I'm going to go treat myself to a new pair of shoes because I had a bad day at work. And that kind of almost as a therapeutic type of shopping. Is that something you think is common, and is that a bad thing?
I don't think, you know, like smart and is that a bad thing? You know, it's really subjective. I think that everyone works for their own reasons, and I think that working to spend money is not a bad thing. But I do think that, you know, if you're going to call bad spending, it would be borrowing to spend on discretionary items. If you've saved up money and you want to spend it on whatever makes you happy, go for it. You know, I've seen a lot of people save every penny they have. To what end, you know, and it's subjective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Tim, about the finding happiness in your spending too as well. And I think it's definitely even, my approach has actually always been not just the happiness part, but life experiences. So spending on life experiences. So I feel that it's better to splurge a little bit more on that vacation that you're going to be remembering versus that pair of shoes that, you know, you're going to have that little short spurt of happiness, but it kind of goes away after that. Those shoes get a little dirty, scuffed, and they're not so shiny after a little while.
Yeah, and you know, going from there, like, is there a role that people's personal values play in how they manage their money and how they spend and save? Like, it's not simply it's not always a rational, logical decision. There might be some underlying values there, I'm guessing. Have you found that?
I think so. And that's why I really think financial literacy should start when we're young, because that's when our values also is being formed. And I always talk about respecting money. And if we respect the money, then whether we're in that position of I need to feel happy, I need to feel I'm in a really dark place right now, I need to be able to spend a little bit, treat myself a little bit. And then if you have that values, and sometimes maybe you'll be like, oh, maybe I don't need to spend that on this little splurge and just really hold off just a little bit. And sometimes, like, you know what, I really went through a really great experience. I worked hard. I need to treat my family, my friends, and feel good about it. Like, respecting money is not about hoarding it. It's more about really putting it into good use so we don't put ourselves in a financial difficulty.
And someone who's really they have an overabundance of spontaneity and impulsiveness, that can be very dangerous.
Yes.
And it's one thing that you have to learn how to moderate.
I think another danger area is also the, quote, keeping up with the Joneses too as well, right? So that's also a little danger area as well, I think, that people need to be cognizant of as well.
And advertising can create a lot of that kind of pressure.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, you need this to be cool, or you need this to, show, you're successful and that kind of thing. But I think you made a good point, Tim, that it's not a bad thing if you've got the money, you've saved, you've worked hard, you can treat yourself every once in a while without feeling guilty, as long as you're not running up too much debt to do so.
Exactly.
What happens when people have run up a lot of debt, like you just all of a sudden you realize, oh, this has gotten unmanageable. My monthly payments are threatening to outstrip my monthly take-home pay. What can people do in that kind of situation?
It's a challenge. Once you get yourself into that situation, it is extremely difficult to backpedal, but it's in everyone's power to do so. Everyone will have kind of a point that they realize the situation they're in. And so you can talk to a financial advisor, you can talk to an insolvency bankruptcy person to help you tread through that situation. But it's not good, like Justin was saying, putting your head in the sand, that's not a solution, and you have to confront it.
Yeah, you should probably never stop making payments and try and just ignore the fact that those bills are coming in, I guess.
No.
And I think also the one piece too that there's different kind of strategies even on paying off that debt and kind of getting out of that really dark, vicious cycle. And I think there's a little bit of a common perception, and it's just a numbers thing where they are trying to pay off either one of two things. One, they're trying to pay off the largest loan or debt that they have. So, for example, the mortgage, or just paying off, that one credit card with a lower interest rate, but they can pay off really, really quickly on one go. But I think really, again, the focus should be on the ones with the higher interest rates, and the ones that are causing the most amount of debt is actually the ones that should actually be focused on, I think, to be able to try to get out of that rut that they're in.
Is there a wide range in interest rates for credit cards? Should people shop around for the best credit card and the lowest interest credit card? Or are they all pretty much the same?
I think it's almost the same. Like the last time that I looked at our credit cards, pretty much BMO, RBC, all that big financial, the Visa and the MasterCard, they pretty much have the same credits, but they also offer some kind of transfers as well. Like sometimes they'll be like, hey, if you want to transfer your certain balance, you have 0%. So those are one of the tricks that the credit companies do give out.
And is that something people should do? Should they take advantage of that? Or is that just another way of a bank getting money out of you?
I'd highly recommend going to other financing sources than using your credit cards as your short-term financing.
I agree with Tim too. Yeah. Like if you have an option, don't do it. But if credit card is the only way that you can get the 0% balance transfer actually makes sense, so long as you have a plan though. Like you need to be able to pay off that debt, because soon as the term, typically 6 months. You're lucky if you get a year. As soon as that term is over, then the 18%, the 22% rates actually starts kicking in immediately. So,
yeah, and this is also kind of where I was kind of mentioning with regards to kind of reading the fine print, because that's definitely that those ones are transferring at the 0%, but they also in the fine detail of that they have that transfer fee of 4%. So still better than obviously, let's say, the 20% or 26% that you're paying with the other credit card, but still realize that it's not free. Let's put it that way.
I didn't know that. Interesting. Are there some types of products or services that people should never spend money on in your view?
Well, for me personally, it's I definitely always advise people not to be the person that is the lead on purchasing technology. So being the first person to have that new Internet of Things, let's say maybe that security camera or that automatic door lock. It's always better, I find, to wait for the first version to kind of get the kinks out of it and then have some of those things fixed before you kind of purchase the newfangled thing.
Good to know. What about there are lots of offers, invest in this and you'll make a ton of money. And, you hear about people getting scammed by Ponzi schemes and other things. How can people protect themselves against those kinds of risky ventures?
Going back to what Aileen was talking about, getting if you are not really financially astute in the investing world, it is definitely worth getting advice from a financial advisor. And again, talk to your 10 closest friends before you start going into these things. Ponzi schemes thrive on don't tell your friend you're getting such a great deal. And as soon as you hear that, you better get some advice. Start asking your friends, because risk and reward, you don't get money for free. As the risk goes, if the rate is guaranteed higher than what you'd get elsewhere, there's definitely a higher risk profile.
So true, yeah. To me, my personal motto is if it sounds too good to be true, it's too good to be true. So take a really hard look. If somebody comes in and say you're starting your investments and say, hey, I can give you double of the rate of returns in the market, I can beat that by, I don't know, double or something. Do a research, read through it, ask a lot of people, as Tim said. And yeah, more information that you have, the more that you can protect yourself from the Ponzi schemes.
So when you do workshops or talk to individuals or high school students about financial literacy, what kinds of questions are the most common? Like, what do you find are the things that are on people's minds?
I want to be a millionaire. How do I get there? That's
Really?
that's probably one of those kind of common questions, and it's they're always thinking it's going to be some magic bullet that's going to be able to get there. And for most of normal people, that's not necessarily the case, right? It's over time, and it's through discipline of and knowing, being financially literate.
In my opinion, when I'm teaching the financial literacy in my company, I find that a lot of people will go, okay, I'm in rough times, and okay, now I'm getting out of my difficult financial situation. They vastly underestimate the time that they have to kind of wait until they've kind of started to get their life back on track before they start doing this discretionary spending. They believe that, okay, I've gone 1 month making more money than spending. Now I can go and hog wild on some discretionary spending. So that's the biggest thing is making people understand that you have to give it time before you start getting back into some of the behavior that might have got you in the soup to begin with.
Yeah, for me, it's the credit card question. So for high school students, they'll ask, what is credit card? I see my mom and dad pull out this fancy card and suddenly we have stuff. So they want to know what is credit card, especially the ones that are in grade 10 and 11. They want to know because they know that come university, they'll be inundated with these offers of credit cards because they're 18 years old and they can get this fancy little cards and get whatever they want. So they're very interested in knowing that. For workers or for working people, they do ask a lot about investments. Where do I invest? How do I find the right investment vehicle for my RSP? So there's a lot of saving questions.
One other thing when I'm teaching financial literacy in companies too, the fact that our governments regularly overspend and create deficits and debt. People, I find, increasingly are having difficulty understanding the difference between the government. It's okay for the government to spend more than they bring in versus me personally. So debt is becoming trivialized, and that's a very dangerous thing.
Justin, any thoughts on that?
Just to kind of mention about the investment side, I think I'm always a proponent of advocating self-investing and from shying away from the financial advisors, just specifically more for the investment side. If it's just financial planning inside of things, that's definitely a great resource to have. But from the investment side, there's a lot nowadays with technology that there's kind of essentially like do-it-yourself, but not necessarily completely by yourself. I don't know if some people have heard through the news. There's robo-advisors, so it's automated investing in areas that or risk levels that you're comfortable with, and it's again not handled by anyone in particular, and the management fees, which is also an area I'm always adamant in expressing, is a lot lower. Some of the financial advisors, and that's definitely why you want to look into or doing your research on when you're picking those financial advisors, is how much are they charging for giving you that advice or recommending that certain investment. You'll find over time that, if you're starting early, that actually adds up a lot to a lot of money, even that 0.5% of management fees over the long run of 30, 40 years is still a significant amount. Like we're talking about probably tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's just something to consider as well.
That's a good way of putting it for sure. If someone is thinking of starting their own business, say they've just graduated with a commerce degree and want to become an entrepreneur, any ideas on how they can approach that from a fiscally responsible perspective?
That's really tough. Like, good on them on being a business owner right off university. I would say really get a good business plan. Like, first know the product or service that you want to offer, and like, how are you going to earn money? Who are your clients? Who are the customers? Those are the key fundamental questions that you need to ask if you want to start your own business. And the bottom line, too, you need some kind of financing to get your business running. The bank of mom and dad might get you to the first year or two, but past that, you need more substantial financing.
Yeah, anyone that, from beyond the money side, if anyone wants to start their own business, I highly recommend work in the industry first for a little bit, just to get an understanding of the basic fundamentals of the business. A lot of people fall into the trap that this is a great idea. I know nothing about the business. If you know nothing about the business, it's probably not a wise thing to start off. But from the financial side, yeah, do go in with 6 to 12 months of backstop funds yourself before you plunge into something like that, because you want to keep control of your destiny. And if you start getting extended by a lot of different financiers, you lose control of your destiny pretty quickly.
And I think another thing to mention in a different avenue, or if their approach when they're starting up the business is to have something completely new and different, so something that then they can't follow Tim's side of things because there's no one out there that actually is doing that side of things. The funding and financing and support is usually out there in larger cities for those kind of startup companies. So, for example, Startup Edmonton or areas like that, or Tech Edmonton, where they are able to provide kind of support or mentorship through their partnerships with other companies and institutions, and potentially financing as well for their endeavors.
Fantastic. Aileen, Tim, Justin, I want to thank you for your time today. And before we close, I want to ask one final question to each of you. It's something you're not prepared for, so this will be off the cuff. But if someone were to ask you, what single piece of financial literacy advice would be most important to them or most valuable to them, what would that be?
I would say save your money. Every dollar counts. So don't worry about the amount or the percent. If it's $1, a $5, just save that money. And time is your friend. So compounding interest and all that. So,
Justin?
Yeah, that was definitely, you stole my thunder on that one.
You have to think of something else now.
No, I was going to focus on more so the compounding interest side of things and understanding what that is and what that means, because it's both your friend and ally and also your worst nightmare. So it's definitely getting a better understanding of that, because that plays into a lot of different parts of financial literacy, whether it's saving, investing, your debt. It covers a lot of different areas.
And I would say nothing measured, nothing gets done. And meaning that check your situation regularly, like weekly, monthly, quarterly. Put it down on paper. Where was I 3 months ago? Where am I now? And set goals. Set goals right from the get-go.
Wow, awesome advice. Thanks to all three of you. And there you have it, straight from the CPA's mouths.
Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you.
This special series on Straight from the CPA's Mouth focuses on all things financial literacy and showcases what the experts have to say about smart money management. I want to thank again our three panelists for coming in today and helping out with such wise and timely advice. Make sure to tune in to our next episode featuring a guest whose journey from bankruptcy to early retirement inspired her to spread the word about financial literacy. And don't forget to subscribe to the Straight from the CPA's Mouth mailing list for additional contents and perks. Thanks for listening.
Straight from the CPA's Mouth is brought to you by the CPA Education Foundation. The CPA Education Foundation is the charitable arm of the Alberta CPA profession, providing up to $1.2 million each year in support of business and accounting education in the province. This podcast is just one of many resource materials available through the HESHI CPA Knowledge Center. This virtual hub features Alberta CPAs sharing their unique perspective and vast expertise on topics and issues such as leadership, finance, entrepreneurship, and more. Visit cpaalberta.ca/foundation for more information on the HESHI CPA Knowledge Center and to learn how Alberta CPAs inspire success.